Good morning. Is it morning? Yes, it is morning. Thanks so much for coming to this breakout session where we're gonna talk with international / ESL English as a second language students here at Blue Ash. We're gonna get to hear their experiences and we're very excited to do that. But before we get started, we have 57 international students currently at Blue Ash in this fall. We have 5 from India, 4 from Nigeria, 3 from Jordan, 3 from Mexico, and there's other countries represented like Brazil, Cameroon, Egypt, Ghana, Guatemala, Jamaica, Peru, South Korea, Vietnam, etc. I stopped writing them down. So we have a very diverse international student population. So we want to hear from them. We want to hear their experiences and what we can do different, so that we can make them feel like they belong even more. So let's get started. How about we introduce ourselves first? I guess I didn't introduce myself. I'm Lucia Hermo del Teso, and I teach Spanish here at Blue Ash. You want to go?
I am Mayumi Chinchihualpa, and I am a pre-engineering student here at UC Blue Ash and also student ambassador.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Sirat. I'm studying artificial intelligence, and I'm also a student orientation leader.
Hello, my name is Fayruz, and I am a third-year student. So I attended Blue Ash for 2 years. I'm going to be uptown this semester, studying marketing, and that's it.
I'm from Peru.
Oh.
I'm Peruvian. I forgot to say that.
Yeah, I'm from India.
I'm from Jordan, and I'm also a student ambassador.
Yeah.
And I'm from Spain. So let's get started with one of the first questions. So can you guys share a little bit about your educational background before you came to UC Blue Ash College? So let's start with Mayumi.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Peru. I went to a Peruvian German high school. It was a religious high school. Usually in Peru we have we used to go to more like private schools. I was there since I started kindergarten until pretty much high school, and I learned both German and English there. So that's about it. Just a fun fact about that, every time we will go in, a professor will go in a classroom, we will all stand up and we will say, Guten Morgen, Herr, whatever, good morning, Mr. that. But it was in German. But we will be used to do that all until fifth or last year of high school. But yeah, that's a little bit about that, if that's enough.
Yeah, sure. See that?
I graduated high school from Delhi, India. In my class, we also had something like wishing our professors, like Mayumi said, just going good morning after whenever a professor entered. For my background, I studied commerce in my junior and senior year, which included classes like economics, accounting, and business.
And I moved here quite a bit ago, so it was about 8 years ago, but I was born and grew up in Jordan until about 6th, 7th grade. And it's funny you guys say that because it was the same way in Jordan as well. So when a teacher would walk in, you stand up, you greet them that way. But we studied, instead of German, we studied French. So I took French from 1st grade until 6th grade.
Wow, so many different languages. I love that. Okay, so why are you guys here? What attracted you to UC Blue Ash? Sia, do you want to start?
Sure. I live nearby, so this was a close place to go to. Also, I heard about UC Blue Ash, it has a strong reputation with University of Cincinnati. So that made me, also when I had a campus tour, the student leaders were really nice and kind, so I thought this would be a great place to be here and interact with people.
For me, I've wanted to go to UC since I moved to the US, but hearing about Blue Ash through my family and friends, I really thought it was just a very diverse campus. I also really liked the class sizes. I thought it was a good transition from high school to college, and seeing that transition and then going uptown, I thought that would be very helpful. So that's one of the reasons that I chose Blue Ash.
In my case, one of the very first reasons was because actually my sister, she came to UC Health. She is a physician, So she was doing rotations. She's a Peruvian physician, so she came to Cincinnati for one of those rotations. And then she came back once she finished that. She came back as a researcher, and that's how I found about UC in general. And I wanted to come to the US to study mainly because engineering, it's a huge field of engineering here at the US, but I didn't know maybe which was affordable, which one was good, maybe affordable but not that bad about university. So I didn't have a clue. One of the main clues was, the main ideas was my sister. So I wanted to look for affordable and high quality education. That was my main goal. And I went to one of those information sessions at UC main campus. Back in Peru, I was just looking at every single page that I could look at. And they mentioned, like, also, like, we have 3 campuses. And one of them, it's a good option for international students. You can start at UC Blue Ash. And I just hear that, like, sentence, and then I started to look up for any information that I could for UC Blue Ash. And that was mainly at first my goal. Like, I wanted to have, like, affordable education. And for an international student, since we have to pay like out-of-state tuition, plus demonstrate housing expenses and like insurance, like you basically, if you guys are not familiarized with that, you also have to demonstrate that you have the living expenses for the whole year. Even if you can afford it, you have to show that you have all that money for a year, like just to come here. So like that was one of the factors there that played in. But I discovered way much more after I chose UC Blue Ash.
That's awesome. Thank you. So, what surprised you guys about the way that your college courses were set up? I don't know if you want to start, Faye.
I would say it's a little bit different in Jordan. So, even though I didn't get a college education there, my family and friends did. We don't have as much of I know times are different also, so, but it wasn't as much of an online, yeah, so we were both talking about that. It wasn't as much of an online, course management as it is here, but also just like the different ways you can get into college. So it's much harder to be a major that you want to be in Jordan than it is here. What I mean by that is you're able to apply to whichever school you want here and have the opportunity to attend that school, even if your high school appearance wasn't that much. In Jordan, you have to take this test, and if you fail like one subject of that test, it's much harder to get into school and get accepted into schools, especially into a program that you want to be accepted in. And it's all based on that one test that you take once a year. So that was a little bit different than it is here.
Yeah, so trying to get into college. That was, wow, thank you. Mayumi, do you want to share?
Yeah, so what surprised me about, in general, college, first, even before the classes set up overall, when I got here, I didn't know the difference between counselor, advisor, and dean. Well, dean, that was my fault because I didn't look for the translation, but that makes sense. Like, it's like the dean, like director. But they were explaining during orientation, like, hey, you have to meet with your advisor every time in the semester, every once in a while, and then you can also meet with your counselor. You have 3 free consultations, and then you will have to pay and such, and you can always visit the dean. And I was like, do I have to pay to meet with my advisor to set up classes at one point? I was just confused because those 2 words are translated as in Spanish as the same thing technically. We do not have, at least in Peru, none of my high school, we don't have like an advisor or counselor. That's not part of the system, and not for what I know in the universities either. Students, they even, just for classes scheduled then, they even have like this order in which you have to, which you get to pick your classes. So even if you have like higher grades, you get to pick your classes first. That's one of the benefits, just like maybe similar to the honors student system. And usually the curriculum, like the classes that you're gonna take, are usually set. Like you have to take it like for the second semester. Probably similar to a main campus, but there's not that much of freedom. Also, as Faye mentioned, in Peru we have this admission test to get to a university. people sometimes will spend like 2 to 3 years preparing just to go to college because you have to do an admissions test. And people could have spent like even 5 years, almost like a college degree, just to get into college, just preparing for that system. So we since we know that it's really hard to even keep like on track on college, we take it really seriously. But that surprised me a little bit about the U.S. system, because I even just in admissions, I didn't have to necessarily look at for like at a score, but like for a holistic application maybe for some of the colleges. One of the other differences, I was gonna say, just also majors. Wasn't expected to like have being able to like combine stuff and being able to do a double major, and also the tests. For example, in Peru, we do have what we call like it's like a makeup exam, but it's towards the end of the class. So after the final exam, you have this substitutorio. It's like it's like an exam that will, in case you're kind of like failing, you can do an extra exam after the finals. So like people sometimes will rely on that. I wasn't expecting to rely on that, but still I didn't know that there was something like that here or not, and that was like slightly different. And just overall, like maybe surprised me about, or like was a difference between like culturally. In Peru, just the people is I'll say very warm. Here as well, it's just a different style that I've noticed. It's just slightly different sometimes. Even just I was mentioning to Lucia, like when you greet someone, my mom was just greeting a friend of mine like a couple of months ago, and I forgot about that. I forgot about explaining to her, and she like went and grabbed his hand, and then she wanted to kiss him on the cheek, like because we do that all the time. But here it's more like a normal sign. But that's totally normal, and I was like really surprised because it's like invading personal space at some point, and more with the COVID, I think we have gotten used to that everywhere in the world. But like that's a slightly different like cultural maybe perspectives that I can like notice that were different from the classes and from the culture itself.
Thank you. Yeah. Sirat, do you want to add?
Yeah. The thing that surprised me the most was the flexibility of the courses. I'm an artificial major right now, but in the last semester I was an exploratory major, so I had a lot of courses from which I could choose from. And then something that I always wanted to study was like a public speaking class, and I was able to take that because of the flexibility provided. Like you can do any major, you can switch your majors if you want some extra classes. Like we have if we have a zombie thing and then we want to know how can we save ourselves from an apocalypse, we also have a class for that. So if someone is interested in anything, there's like flexibility, you can take anything you want. Like we said, it's not something like that in our like countries. So that was really interesting. Also like I was talking earlier, in our countries, like in my country I had like textbooks and notebooks, like 5 textbooks, 5 notebooks, and like a lot of stuff to carry with me to school. We did not have we have Canvas here, like our management app for the courses. So I think that's a major difference too, because we never uploaded any assignments or anything online. Yeah.
Learning management systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything here is online, so that's super cool. We also did not use our mobile phones. We were not allowed to carry our mobile phones. We did not take any laptops in our high school. So that's a major difference too.
I was gonna add to that. I forgot office hours. We're not, at least of course in high school, but also in what I know from college in Peru, you can reach out to the professor. They can even, or usually they're kind of like the advisors, because they help you sometimes to set up a class, or even they allow you to go into a class. But office hours overall, that's not something that's very common in Peru, at least. Like as I was telling you, like you can reach out to the professor, but they don't have like that set time. So being able to take advantage of that office hour, I was not even like having that in mind when I first started like the first semester. Like what is the actual, like what would I do in an office hour, like appointment or such. That mainly that I remember.
Yeah, you guys are saying things that also I lived through. Because in Spain, I took classes and I would start the semester and I would go to class, I would take notes, and then I had to wait until the end of the semester to take an exam, and that was my grade. And I also had the second chance to take the exam if I failed it. So yeah.
And also the GPA, that like, I mean, it's not good. Exactly, you're not necessarily expecting to like fail, of course, but in terms of the GPA, in my case in Peru, it's up to 20 points, and we don't use A's or B's and such. And even if you, and that's also surprising, I was working with a couple of transfer students. When they do their like transfer application, some grades that are really low, that aren't necessarily like that percentage that to give you like a C, they will give you a B here, because it also depending on which university, it's sometimes harder to get an A or even impossible in most of like these national universities in Peru. You're just not expecting at all to have a 4.0 GPA. That's just maybe once in a while. But yeah.
GPA, to add on that, I know Mayumi said it's like at 20 points. In Jordan, it was more like, it's kind of like a percentage, so it was out of 100. And that, you know, at the end of the year is, you get that percentage out of 100, and that's how well you did. And again, like if you want to get into a certain major in school, and you get a percentage less than what they qualify for, you're not able to, and you have to, study again for two, 3 years. People study for this one test to be able to get into school.
Yeah, we're out of in Spain it was out of 10 points. Yeah, and if you got a 5 out of 10, you passed the class. Thank you.
Yeah, like at one point you're not expecting to like calculation, would I pass, what is my final GPA gonna be? Although it's probably smart as a college students to do it, and you learn to do it with the time. But when I first got in, I wasn't sure of like how many A's and B's were gonna affect my GPA, and I end up I have this GPA. I don't know if that's good either.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the rank of good or bad was, even though I know math, but it's still.
Yeah, but it's out of 4. Like, what is that? Yeah. So, can you guys give an example of a misunderstanding that occurred because of misconception between yourself and your professor or other classmates? And I think we were starting back to Mayumi, if you want to start, or.
That's a good question.
Do you want to pass?
I can pass.
Yeah, okay. See that?
So I did not have any misconception or misunderstanding with the professor, but when I was applying to be here, I did not have my transcripts back from India because I wasn't sure that we needed that. And I also got my high school grades just after I moved here, so there was no option to go back to my school there and grab my reports. So that was a misunderstanding which made me not being able to attend the fall semester last year, and then I had to apply to join in spring. So that kind of wasted my time.
Wow.
Again, I moved here about 8 years ago, so I haven't necessarily had a misconception with the professor, but back when I did move here, starting school, even though I learned English since kindergarten, it was still very different moving here. Because the English we learn is, it's like British English, so it's not American English. So when I first moved here, and when people speak to me, it was very difficult to understand what they were saying, because it was so fast-paced. And so the first kind of year or so, my teachers were very accommodating, but not necessarily a misconception with the professor. So
That's good.
Yeah, I will kind of agree in terms of there weren't major misconceptions or misunderstandings, mainly because something that I was telling Lucia about, there's this quote about adaptation. In Spanish, it's, I wouldn't know how to translate it. In Spanish, for the ones that you know Spanish, I'm going to take a sentence of your life. It's called, de todas partes vengo y hacia todas partes voy, artes soy entre las artes y entre los montes, montes soy. So it's I come from everywhere and I go anywhere. Art I am among the arts or the paintings, and between the mountains I am a mountain, or mountains am I, something poetical or such. The thing is that I will really like combine that quote with the mentality of an international student or an immigrant, and we have different backgrounds. International students, we are considered international students because of not having maybe a green card, because we could have lived here for years, but we still like maybe don't have that residency. Some of us were totally immigrants directly, like they came here like literally walking by there. A couple of my friends. Some of us just came with a plane, so we have different backgrounds, totally from different countries. But there's still like that mindset of I have to adapt and I have to take whatever is here, and like I'm just trying not gonna make like that have that confusion. So like we're really good with adapting to a system. Like for what I've had with like different friends, maybe something small that like I didn't misunderstand. I was just not used to. There was this blue book in which I had to write an essay for a history class, and I was like, I know how to do essays. I don't know maybe how to write a lot, but I'm gonna try my best. So I did it, but it was like I did maybe 3 pages, like 3 sides, and then I would look back at like my classmates. I'd talk with them, and they had made like 12 pages. And maybe, well, she was maybe the pro of the class, but still, I was like, wait, I didn't know about that expectation. That's one of the maybe kind of like misconceptions that I will mention at the moment. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like sometimes maybe having very specific instructions for an assignment can help to know what's going on.
And overall, for like in my case, since I came here a year and a half, and I've met people that also came here maybe 2 years. They speak a really good English. He speaks like a lot of tone, and he will talk to you about anything that you want. In my case, just to like maybe mention in perspective, I still feel that I am still like growing my English. I was mentioning Lucia how when I first got into like the airport, I was like, okay, I'm hearing all this English, like Faye said, and like you have already learned English maybe back there in like any country that you were, but you're like I have to be up to the college level of English, so I have to be up to here, and like you maybe can get afraid of that, but you still will like you could even understand in classes, but then when you talk like when you hear someone talking like slightly not that loud, or like it's just easier to either lose focus on the class, even if you don't have any problem with attention. It's just easier for like the stuff to come through here and like go away as soon as it enters your brain. It's just easier to turn the switch off, and it's also sometimes easier to, if you're like away from home, to just get loose on yourself. Don't feel like you belong, and even so more, don't feel as strong as you would feel talking in your own language. I was mentioning that the other day, like how I like to maybe talk in Spanish, and then I had to develop that from scratch in English, like grow again in like that public speaking side. And still, like I will still feel that I cannot be mean in English because I don't know how to, like I don't know the words if I had to. But yeah, that was one of the like different.
I would add on to what Marie said. It's like you can't, especially when first moving here, you can't really express yourself how you want to. So, and then like translating. So again, like with hearing things, you have to translate it in your head, and with speaking also. So when you speak, you have to think. Like I used to do this when I first moved here. I would think about it in Arabic, and then I would have to translate it into English in my head for it to come out in English, and that could be like taken the wrong way at some point. So it's just like you just really have to think a lot about what you're saying, because even though you've learned it your whole life, it's so much different living where the language is like mostly used. That's what's spoken here. So
Yeah.
I would also like to add on to that. Like you said, we also have British English, so a lot of words are like spoken differently. They have like different meanings. If I had to say my name in like British English, I would say like Sirat Anand. But if I had to say in like American accent, I would just say like Sirat Anand, like something like that.
Yeah.
The A's are not same, the tones are not same.
Yeah, like I'm technically from Peru, That's how you say Peru. But whenever I say it, I usually say I'm from Peru. And then you're like, I don't know, that even makes sense. But yeah, I mean, that's like small differences that you kind of get adapted to with the time.
Yeah.
Adaptions, like, you really have to.
Yeah. I learned British English too. So when I first came to the States, I would go to restaurants and bars and they would ask me what I wanted to drink. I'd be like, I want a glass of water. Purposely do it just to see their face go. Anyway, so we're getting now to the questions that about support. So what support could instructors provide to help you adjust to the classroom here? What maybe now you know a lot, but maybe back then, right when you first started, what would you wish that you had for support in the classroom? And I don't know whose turn it was to start. Sierra? I think so.
I think in most of my classes, the teachers and the professors like tried to make us interact by having like talk to each other, like have pairs of group activities. And in the other classes they did not, so it was difficult to make a friend in class or have someone to rely on in case you're sick or you missed a class, you don't have anyone to talk to, and when you're coming the next day, like your next class, you already missed a lot of stuff or you missed an assignment. So I think if professors could help us interact more with each other and make friends in class, like having group activities or pair up, talk to each other, that would really help us to become better. And now we have someone to rely on in the class. So just like more structured, organized activities in class so that interaction is better and we are able to perform and give our best.
I would say, I would say just like, not necessarily be lenient, or I would just say like, as long as the professor knows that it's something a student is struggling with, is like a language barrier, for example, I think for support, I would just like the professor to know that and not take it into consideration as much as just be there if we need any questions, which at Blue Ash is very helpful because professors are very hands-on and very involved in students' learning. So I guess just like be there for the students if they have additional questions or just need some more extra time of understanding what an assignment is asking, or need further explanation of what was said in the lecture.
Mm-hmm.
I will agree on that. On being resourceful, it's always gonna be something that at least I, as international students, really appreciate. Like look for those like points of. It's like a anchor. Is it an anchor?
Oh,
an
okay.
anchor. Yeah, it's like an anchor for you. Like, okay, here I have someone that I can look up to. When I my first week here, I was doing chemistry, and this is maybe a problem for any chemistry student that is studying chemistry. You don't know the lab staff name, like the stuff that is like all the lab equipment names, because you don't usually do chemistry. So I mean, you might forget about it on a daily basis. It's like Petri something, and they have specific names, but still you get a sense of what they are. In my case, I've learned that in Spanish. I've learned that even in German, but not in English, honestly. And back then, I was trying to, we had to do this checking list to take all the equipment out and then put it inside. And I didn't know what it was. A couple of the students didn't know either that much, but they had some idea. So I started to translate everything there, and I think I was the last one to leave the room. But the thing is that also the professor, she had a slideshow, with the pictures and names. Mm-hmm. And it's because of the same issue, not all of them, they know the lab equipment names. But the thing is that I was kind of really frustrated. It was my first week. I was trying to get used to everything here. And I talked with her, and she was Anna Donald. And then she put me in touch with different resources. She listened to me, and she connected me with a couple of Spanish professors to just get that feeling of welcome, or get any scholarship advice that I wanted to, or just being a point of contact. So she was resourceful with me, and that really helped me back then. More than just the resource, it was just there's an anchor here. There's person that I can ask to, and she's gonna lead me maybe to other people that can help me in the future and such. But definitely having like being resourceful, I was gonna say, just to mention, technically a couple of the classes that I've done better with, I don't know if it was on purpose, but there were classes that had recorded lectures. Not because I was able to translate it in Spanish, because I couldn't, even though I tried, just in case. But no, because most of them, they have subtitles with Cultura, I think. That's just a style of learning. Some of the classes, some of math classes, they recorded lectures. It was an online class. Some psychology lectures, they had like recorded lectures, and then you will go to class to basically do class discussions. The thing is that I was able to like watch it and like with my own pace and like being able to be focused on the classroom, on the like that video, because that will help me at least. But if I was on a classroom, I will usually be like, okay, I have to record the session just in case I get distracted, because, or if I have to remember something, or if I have to hear it once and twice and 3 times. So like that's one of the things that helped me throughout my like semesters here, like having recorded lectures. Sometimes looking for subtitles at the beginning, but it was in English anyways. The thing is, it's just like a guide that helped me. I don't know if that's the case always. I've enjoyed having a lot of math classes because math is math, and like I still count like in Spanish in my mind. But I mean, that's like my background. I usually like I'm still more familiarized with math classes than like normal subjects. But still, like having like someone that is resourceful. Getting to adapt at least at first on the college, like with the orientation leaders, was good for me. But still, there were a couple of questions that I maybe didn't do at the time. Like having that very first like beginner guideline of like what is a college advisor, what is a like counselor, which is apparently like psychology department, what we would call it. But I didn't know that at the time. But yeah, that type of resources. Not just having them there, but actually understanding them. At least I didn't understand them well at the time, and I think that would have helped me back then. But yeah, and also, at least in my background, just to mention, to finish with that, it's more like, it depends on how do you want to treat the student. You can understand them, you can be resourceful, but at least, like in my background, family background, and like sometimes improve, it's more like a part of respect, treating the people as like equal in terms of maybe this isn't easy for you, but I know that you can adapt, and I'm not gonna make it easier for you, and that's showing respect. So like it's like if I were to play with my brother basketball, and I'd rather have him beat me on basketball and like humiliate me or something than to him like being like good with me, and like it's like kind of like that disrespectful. Exactly, but because I feel it better when I'm like, okay, I'm up to this. Because I'm expecting to get adapted, and like I was with that mindset from the very beginning. I had this professor that with my essay, also one of my other essays in history, he at one point he was like, your essay is missing some stuff, and he mentioned at the end, but I know that you are like an international student, and I understand like it could be somehow more difficult. So I think that's why he didn't give me that much of a bad grade. And at the moment, I honestly didn't know how to take it. It was somehow good because he was showing support and understanding, but at the same time, I wanted to be like on the same page. Exactly. Like I'm up to this standard, so I would just be maybe careful with that. That's like my background. I'd rather have it like on the same level. It's not me trying to like get more easy stuff. But even be prouder of myself when I achieve something.
Yeah, so provide me the support so that I can get to this part, don't lower it for me.
For me, I would agree. I'd rather fail the first time or not do as good, but then challenge myself to rise to that standard of the classroom or the standard of the professor that is, but again, I'm sure you appreciate the support, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you would, I get it. Like, still want to be challenged, because I had the same experience. It was in 7th grade, but it was a similar experience with an essay that looking back at like my writing, I was like, this is not good at all. But my teacher was very accommodating and very he understood where I came from, but at the same time, I would have rather, you know, be almost as good as the people that did grow up here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Adding on to that, like you earlier said about the fast-paced lessons, everything. So, in my first semester, a class I had to like adjust with the fast pace speaking of to my professor, and then every time I left the class, I had to like make sure and confirm with her like what the assignments were, like in case I missed something or in case like I lose my focus, because sometimes it's just difficult to understand everything, like each and every chapter they're teaching along with the other things they're telling us, like essays, assignments, this is pending, that is pending. So, and then in my next semester, I had a professor who just like wrote everything we did that day or whatever was upcoming in the next week, so that if someone like missed something or they're not able to understand, it's better to have it like written on the board so that no one feels like they missed something because of a language barrier or something. It's just like extra support and like understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly. The fast pace, even if it's like super or like normal pace, it's really faster pace. Like when you're kind of like translating, even if you're not conscious of it, you're kind of translating, or you're getting used to getting all those words. Like this is not necessarily something in Spanish anymore. This is just the concept, and that's a nice thing. Anyways, from knowing a lot of languages, like more than one at least, because you don't see things as just that. I mean, just that word. You see it from different perspectives and like cultural views even. But definitely, like I remember physics, even though it's kind of math. When he was saying like, so VP, like the direction, like relationship with them, like thermodynamics. So he was talking about like a graph, and he was saying so VP goes to CP and like BP, and he was just saying different numbers and like labels. And I was still trying to, okay, this is B, and he was already like three numbers or like points ahead, and it wasn't that much of a fast pace. I was just kind of like trying to grasp that, and like maybe having a visual aid, which I would use maybe I would study before and afterwards, so that I don't get loose on that. At least I started to do that with other classes, but back then it was kind of challenging. Because it's like not necessarily a super fast pace. It's just it gets faster when you're trying unconsciously to translate stuff.
Yeah. I don't know if this has happened to you guys, but when first coming to America, I would try to have a conversation with a group of people, and everybody was speaking English, and I was just getting ready. And when I had my response, it was 5 minutes later, and they were talking about something else.
All the time.
Yeah.
And it's still like, there's this cultural stuff that I cannot reply to. I'm like, I don't know.
What is that? Yeah, thank you. So the last question is about the support that the college could provide to help you adjust to the college environment. So not so much in the class, but just also just the general college.
I think just making sure that everyone's involved, and Blush is a great way of doing that, with whether it's a student orientation leader or being an ambassador, or something as simple as working at the student life desk. Just making sure that everyone has a place to go, or like an affinity group to be a part of. It definitely helps feel like you're more included in certain activities, or included with the right people that could relate to your situation, or could speak the same language as you. I think it definitely makes a student feel more welcome. And again, when I first moved here, I went to it was a private school, so there wasn't like an ESL program. There wasn't much diversity, so I definitely felt like I was like an odd man out. I was like, I stand out in the crowd. So I definitely think just having people that can relate to your situation, or like your tradition or your culture, I think that could help students be more, or like feel more welcome or more involved, and that could also help the education part of going to school.
You want to go?
Oh. Yes, definitely. They mentioned a huge thing, which is making sure like that everybody's involved. Because students sometimes they don't know about like how the potential that they have between like becoming leaders and like actually being not just becoming leaders to mentor someone or like to help someone, but growing within that. Like you are learning to be resourceful for yourself. Like okay, what do I have to look for this student? Maybe he's looking for scholarships, and then you learn how to look for those scholarships, for example. But definitely out of experience and out of friends that I've met from the main campus, for example, but we are still Peruvian international students. I've seen a lot of, at least from my friends, I've heard a lot of the same things. They are away from home, most of them. I am lucky to be with my family, like most of my family around here, that they just came like last year, but they are mainly away from home. Most of them, I've noticed like this certain like homesickness feeling, or like depression even until that point. I've seen how they have told me how they changed between like how they were there and how they are here. As I was mentioning, sometimes it's not as easy to be as strong as you are like in your own language as like when you come here, and also it's not as easy to like the identity that you maybe like were like raised in, like having to build it again maybe in another language and in another culture and on your own. It usually should be easier, but in our case, also being like almost teenagers, transition from high school to college, it's not just being away from home, it's being away from everything you know. So that's one of the things that I've seen a lot. Like that, like you get to hide on yourself, maybe not even get involved, not getting more people. And it's easier for international students. A lot of them I've seen, like maybe they were leaders on like wherever they were from. And I've heard like actual stories about that. And here they're like, I don't know if I'm that anymore. I don't know if I can be like that anymore. I've changed. I don't know what to do and such. But making sure like the college, like maybe talking about the college in general, that and also the professors that like could like push them towards that, that they are involved. And not just involved like as well, how do I get them involved? But like sometimes what has helped me is get involved from a place of comfort. If it's art for you. In my case, I got involved at first with Latinos en Acción, mainly because I was sometimes able to talk with a couple of friends in Spanish while I was being still the leader that I was, or like the stuff that I like to do like back at home, like coordinating, organizing, like in Spanglish, so both ways. And at least it was like my place of comfort. And then I walked out of that in terms of I didn't have to speak in Spanish anymore. I was like more confident with my English, and I grew up into that. But I did it from a place of comfort. So maybe if you like art, like a student says that they like art, and maybe you can start to get them involved because of that. That helps a lot. And that I remember like just even being an ambassador. I remember how like first like that feeling of connection. It's like comes from a place of comfort. So I remember being an ambassador changed that a lot in my experience. And also even being with ambassadors, I remember that first session of training last year, a couple of them started to talk in Spanish, and I was like, wait, what? And it just felt totally different. At this point of my life, I think that it doesn't make that much of a difference anymore, but I still would feel that, wow, that slightly feeling of home that pushes you in when you're like when you need it the most, like to just push you when you're trying to like be a leader, like get involved. It helps it like way more than just saying, okay, get involved, get into an event. I could go to an event, but I could not get involved at all. I could be like just standing, and like that even make me more anxious because I'm like I'm just uncomfortable. But like helping to connect like in those terms and like help them to become leaders and to become resourceful for themselves. That's one thing that, for example, the college has helped me with, like the student ambassador role and clubs. That it could be either affinity clubs or like anything that you like and that you feel some certain comfort with. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we had a lot of resources and like knowledgeable professors and advisors who like help us get to the things or like the resources we need. So I kind of like adjusted pretty quick in the starting because I know I also like applied to be a student leader. I was like trying to get involved in a lot of things. I think that was because I attended a lot of events like friendship visit making or like stuff one get involved DUC so that you meet people and you talk to them and you feel like you belong here and you're not alone, like just when you go back to your dorm and you're like sitting there like knowing that you did not do anything or you don't have any friends. Obviously you want to connect with more people and get involved, but somewhere you are just uncomfortable or shy to be there because you know you won't be able to talk to someone or something. So I think there are a lot of things which we can do, like understanding where the students are coming from and their backgrounds and making things easier for them so that they are able to rise to the same level.
I would just want to say, like, having a sense of belonging, because it can be really hard, especially for first moving here. You might not know anyone or not have anyone to talk to. Like Sarah said, you're going to go back to your dorm and sit there and say, what am I doing here? Or, you know, why I don't have any friends yet, or, you know, you just don't know what you're doing. So having that sense of belonging, whether it's, like Wayne said, if you're into art or like music, it doesn't necessarily have to be related to home, but you could find people that, you know, have the same common interests as you. And yeah, so just having that sense of belonging, I think, would help a lot.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I would like to add on to that. Like I've been trying to get involved in a lot of events, but because I'm here on a green card, I'm not able to because it requires like some like specific visa documents. So I think like understanding people here are trying to get involved from a different backgrounds and also like on different visas, and they're not able to get involved even though like I was also new, and if there's an international student, they're also new. But I also want to like take part in the events and stuff, but I'm just not able to because of that simple thing.
Yeah.
So I think like having that support in college, like everyone is able to if they're new or something, that would really help.
And just for adaptation purposes, talking about college-wise, but we have also mentioned that, and some things have like also changed, and that's one good thing. Like we get to talk with the college, and the college hears us back. One thing, when I came here last spring, so it was pretty much winter, like not this spring, but like a year ago, and having the adaptation with the shuttle system, for example. Sometimes you get into our dorm and like that's it. Maybe they guide you and they are like, okay, if you want to go to Blue Ash, then you have to take the shuttle and like you have to come here. That's about it. Then you figure out for yourself pretty much, because international students, we have just like for your information, we have to go to at least three different offices if we want to know about our stuff, like international admissions at the main campus, international services for visa purposes at the main campus, and a couple of them differently. They're just spread around there. We don't have necessarily something like that here at Blue Ash yet, but still it's like a growing population. I would sometimes get to ESL, like conversation classes at the main campus. When we had them there, we don't have them anymore. But yeah, it's pretty much sometimes the adaptation, the very first week of classes. Like sometimes you get help from most of that, like students that are here. Like if you are on the dorm with them, sometimes they're international students. In my case, I was just with my sister, so I had to take the metro that very first day after arriving to Cincinnati. Like the next day I was here in orientation, and I was almost lost. Like it was 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and it was already dark because it's winter. So I was just in a bus stop that was kind of scary, but I found my way home. The thing is, or my point is, like in terms of like you're getting used to that. The shuttle system's not necessarily something that we have, and it's also because it's one campus. It's also a university that it's particular, but definitely like those support system within like shuttles for orientation that we talked about. Maybe a shuttle for orientation, but it's just a couple of details. And overall, just it's for sharing the fact that sometimes we're adapting to that, as any college student is. Sometimes just slightly more disoriented with like credit cards or stuff that is new to us when we get here, like getting all that stuff, and like I don't know, time management, as any college student, but in English and like kind of new in some ways.
Thank you. Well, does anybody want to ask any questions or add anything?
I guess I was surprised that we're talking about with the visa that there's certain documentations that you would need in order to do some activities. I would have never thought. I thought everything was open to everybody.
Yeah.
In terms of university. Do you know what specific kind of issues you had with that? I mean,
Yeah, so it's like if we have an event or if we have a trip going somewhere, like doesn't even if it's just in a day, but then I'm not allowed to do that because I'm on a green card and I don't have the international student visa because it is specifically for international students. So it makes sense that it's for international students, so only international students go there. But somehow I'm also an international student because I just moved here and I wasn't born in America. But I have a green card, so I'm not allowed to do that because in the document wise, I'm not here.
So we're basically considered international students, but not an international student visa, so it's not, we don't qualify for certain events.
Yeah.
You have to have an F1 maybe to go
Exactly.
to.
So yeah, international students overall qualified as international students if they don't have a residency,
Yes.
technically. So if you're an immigrant, sometimes if you just moved here, like if your whole family like legal or illegal immigrant, like documented or undocumented, as long as you don't have a residency, you're technically an international student for tuition purposes mainly, and for like papers purposes. So yeah, you can usually international students they come under an F1 visa. And about that, for example, there's some things that might surprise you if you don't do the research well on your own. If you want to go into a career that it's, for example, aerospace engineering, since it's a topic of national security, most of the things are related to national security in terms of like rockets or like rocket science overall. So you would be able to study that, but you wouldn't be able to get into most of the jobs that you want. So not Boeing, not Delta, not the fancy things that you could have, mainly because you don't have a citizenship. So that's something that sometimes surprises students. Like they're like, but I came here to study like aerospace engineering. I don't want to be doing a co-op maybe in Germany. If I get it, that would be super nice. But even so, like I'm here like because of that. So if they don't do their research well, sometimes they get surprised by that. That's just a couple of limitations. For example, anything that's related to national security. Sometimes maybe with computer science, like more advanced stuff, as long as you have to fill some of those security records, you would not be able to work on that. And that's something to know beforehand. That would be useful for students.
Follow-up question with that. So with domestic travel, like I'm thinking some of our departments and businesses, have trips to, Texas, et cetera. Some of them are related to the airline industry, but are you able to, with the green cards, do the domestic travel experiences and programs, or is it more an issue if they're going overseas?
I'm not sure about that because the event which I was trying to get was like a day trip or something nearby, and then it was just like domestic and not overseas.
Okay.
But I think if you're going to New York or something, you do need like passport or something. I'm not like really sure.
I
about
will add on to that. So I've lived here since 2016. I don't have my green card yet, but I'm still considered an international student because I'm not a permanent resident in the U.S. With that being said, I was a part of like a Jumpstart program here at
Right,
ESL.
that's what I was going to ask.
So I did. I was able to travel to Texas.
Okay.
So at domestic, I believe it's just like your ID, as long as you have like a U.S. ID, like a driver's license or just an ID, an official ID, you can travel domestically. But like international, like overseas, I don't believe you are able to unless you have a passport from like your country where you have the visa there, but not having a U.S. passport can be hard to travel to certain countries because then you need to get a visa for that country specifically or have a certain visa. It just depends on like actual like laws that you have to. So I know internationally you can't, but domestic you're able to. You should be able to, at least for most programs.
Yeah, internationally, you just have to, like if you are on the F1 visa, you have to request the permission from the school. You do have to like get like a sign for that, but other than that, you were able to travel. Usually.
So the international students with F1 visas have a little bit more flexibility than the student that's here on a green card or doesn't have a green card.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I used to teach English second language for a short time in elementary when I was taking a gap from higher ed, and we never considered international students to be people who lived here. So it's interesting to have that language switch that, you know, someone who's been here 6 years would have never considered you English second language, English language learner,
I didn't.
but not an international
And I
student.
didn't know that until I applied and I got in, and I think it was, like, on my application, I didn't, like, need to lie, obviously, but being here
Right.
for so long, I think I
It's not
pressed
called
a
that in
different
K-12.
button or something.
Mhm.
And I only found out when I became a student orientation leader because, like Mayumi said, the international student office is all the way at Clifton. So,
Mhm.
to my surprise, when I was doing my onboarding, I brought, my license and my social and my
Right.
work card, and I brought them to Blue Ash because that's where I'm gonna be working. But it wasn't a matter of, oh, here's my papers. It was a matter of you have to go uptown, show them that, and then come back and like that way you'll get onboarded. But we can't. So it was kind of that because I was technically not a permanent resident, which would make me an international student. So, I don't have to I know most international students have to pay out of state tuition. It's not in my case because I think I've lived in Ohio, I've been living in Ohio for so long, but I still have to pay the international student fee, basically.
Oh, gosh. And then you guys aren't eligible for a lot of financial aid, right? You're not
I don't
a citizen.
Yes, we do not apply for FAFSA. We do have sometimes what it's called an international outreach scholarship award by the college. It's sometimes from international admissions or from UC Blash College. I'm not quite sure of where which department gives that to us. It's up to $2,000 per year or $4,000 per year, I'm pretty sure. But it's usually, most of the people I've known, they get $2,000 per year. And that's about it as for tuition, aid. Unless you get something like the ambassador, any other scholarship outside of that.
But even with other scholarships, sometimes that may or may not be offered by the college. Sometimes you have to really look at the qualifications because if you're not, it would say it has to be a U.S. citizen or the wording. It really just depends.
And it's not the case with every international student. But most of the international students under an F1 visa, they are only able to work on campus and up to 20 hours. So even if they want to pay for the college, you cannot. Simply, you usually cannot because that's the rate that you will be able to pay unless you get more scholarships. But that's something that a lot of international students are really worried about during their time on college. How do I help my parents? How am I able to make it? Can I work part-time? Or they really want to work for look for part-time jobs. And still, it's probably only gonna be on campus. But it's different if you have a work permit and such. Then you could work outside of school and maybe more hours.
Yeah. Answering your question, you asked if you have, I have a green card, so yes, I can apply for FAFSA.
Okay, so with a green card,
Yeah.
So essentially, all financial aid has to go to the international student office. So even if someone's been here since they're 2-3 years old, and English might even be their primary language, because I know some people in that situation, but they're not a citizen, they're still going to be considered an international student?
I think you have to have a green card.
Or they don't have a green card. Okay.
So in my case, it was more of it was a weird thing. So it was me and my whole family. It's not to get into details or anything, but it's not that I haven't applied or for my green card. I'm waiting for my green card, and for that to take so long and me going through school already, it does make it a little bit harder. But yeah, I think if you do have a green card, then you're good. But if not,
But that takes years.
yeah, because the green card, if you do have a green card, you're considered a permanent resident. But if you don't, you're not a permanent resident in the U.S.
So, One last question.
I just want to acknowledge that we hear all this difficulty. That has nothing to do with syllabus, curriculum, assignments, homework on time. The students are battling all this stuff just so they can sit in a classroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we want to keep in mind.
Yes. Oh, there was a question? Another question? No? Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and yeah. So a round of applause.